Approximately 1 in 6 couples will be affected by subfertility, and for many of these people the ability to become parents will only occur with the help of a donor, for instance an egg donor or a sperm donor or an embryo donor. Some fertility clinics such as Repromed offer a donor program. So what does that mean? Donation simply refers to a third party donating the eggs or sperm or embryos, and that can be used by the recipient couple or parents to create a family. Repromed has the longest serving donor program in South Australia. It's important to use an assisted reproductive facility if you're going to be using donor gametes because it makes it safer in the long run. So there are 4 groups of people who may wish to use a donor program. There are single women who wish to solo parent. There are heterosexual couples where one or both of the couples may wish to use donor eggs or donor sperm, and that may be because of a quality issue or it may be because of a genetic issue. A third group is women in a same-sex relationship who may wish to access donor sperm. And then another group is males in a same-sex relationship who may need to access an egg donor as well as a surrogacy arrangement. The law in South Australia changed as recently as March 2017 so that no person can be refused fertility treatment based on their gender, their marital status, their sexuality or their religion. Now, in essence, this means that single women or a woman in a same-sex relationship have access to fertility treatment, especially if they want to access donor sperm. They don't need a diagnosis of infertility. There are different types of donors that can be used at Repromed. First of all, there's recipient recruited donors. Now, this is someone that you may know that you have asked or has offered to be a donor for you. Another type of donor is the clinic recruited donor, and this is someone who may have come to Repromed and offered to be a donor, and then their investigations and their screening has already been carried out. Another group of donors are donors accessed through overseas clinics. Now, people who come to Repromed have access to California Cryobank for sperm donation, but that needs to be people from California Cryobank who meet the Australian criteria. And lastly, there's another group of people who may actually wish to travel overseas for their donation, and they may be able to be helped by Repromed in the initial stages of that process. At Repromed, all our donors have thorough medical assessments. All donors have at least 2 counselling sessions so that they're fully aware of all the implications of donation. All donors are screened for a set of infectious diseases, for instance HIV, Hep B, hepatitis C, syphilis, and some basic genetic screening as well. Sperm donors will have a full semen analysis and then a sperm DNA damage assessment, and then the sperm needs to be frozen. And then 3 months later, the donor is once again screened for those infectious diseases, and as long as that's fine, then the sperm can be released for use. It's important to know that all donors that we use at Repromed must agree to identifying information being made available to any offspring, should they ask, after the age of 18. So who makes the ideal kind of donor? It may be different for an egg donor or a sperm donor. The ideal age range for a sperm donor would be someone who's between 21 and 45 years of age. The ideal age for someone who's an egg donor would be between 21 years and 38 years of age. Of course, these are guidelines only, and these ranges can be extended for special circumstances. We would recommend that any donor be fit and healthy and have no known genetic conditions that could have an increased risk to be passed on to any offspring. Of course, the person who's producing the sperm must not be related to the person who's producing the eggs. So if you were to access clinic-recruited donation, how much information do you actually have about the donor? So once counselling is completed, you could be offered several donor profiles in the case of sperm donation. And you might have an 8-page profile with information about the donor, and this would include their physical details, their level of education, a little bit about their personality. It'll include their medical history and their family history. And you could be offered a couple of those donor profiles. Alternatively, if you're accessing California Cryobank, then you can access their website and have a look at those donors who fit the Australian criteria. It's important to realise that the donor is purely a donor. In other words, for the donor, there is no financial or legal responsibilities or obligations for the future. They have been asked to update their medical information, and they must agree to identifying information being given to offspring after 18. On the birth certificate, the parents are listed if the recipients are in a relationship, or just the birth mother's name if it's a solo parent. And it's important to realise that the donors are never listed on the birth certificate. In Australia, it's illegal to pay anyone for gamete donation. We are unable to go through with a donation if there has been offers of gifts or payments for the donor. Of course, any reasonable expenses can be reimbursed, travel expenses, lost income, and there should be no out-of-pocket costs for the donor. At Repromed, we understand that the decision to start a family using donor gametes is a very big decision. And that's why we have a dedicated donor team to help with that process. So if you're considering using donor sperm or donor eggs or donor embryos, what's your next step? I would suggest that you get a referral from your GP or your specialist, or give us a call, and we'd be very happy to help you from there.